For this week's video, I wanted to take the bullseye off of secularist, nihilist, absurdist, naturalist, physicalist, like I've been doing my past two videos, taking their axiom to its logical conclusion. See, I'm of the belief that axioms run through their logical conclusions in reality. You see, the secularist always becomes a nihilist, even if they won't admit it. They're a nihilist because their worldview goes into it, becomes nihilism because their worldview is that there is no inherent meaning. And when that finally clicks in their head and they start to believe it, they look at their lives, their families, their job, the world, the nation, and they realize this is all stupid and pointless, right, according to their worldview. But it's almost like logic is like a force, like gravity or something. Like it will push through over time, and the uh, contradictions will rise to the surface and work themselves out. Right? That's what's happening to the West, because I'm gonna talk about the United States here, because the United States axiom is terrible. Right? The axiom is basically it's based off of the I think therefore I am the Cogito. That's the actual foundational axiom of the Enlightenment. I think therefore I am, right? And with I think therefore I am, if you run the logic through, it becomes self-evident truths, because now you took the I am that I am, which was the standard before, a objective uh, standard of reality, of morality, of logic, of truth, of knowledge, of ethics, all this stuff. It was an objective grounding with the I am that I am. That becomes I think, therefore I am, which is loaded with presuppositions that nobody even, that you could pick apart. I think, therefore I am easily. First of all, who's the I? How do you know you're an I? What's thinking, right? You haven't even grounded thinking. You just grant yourself the I, you grant yourself the thinking. It's a bad axiom, and we're watching it play out right now. It took 250 years, but it's working itself through. The contradictions are rising. You take that axiom and you run it through its logical, through formal logic, and the math works out. It's we the people hold these truths to be self-evident. Who's the we? Who's the we? The founding fathers? Okay. And then so what happens when they pass away? Then who's the we? The people in power, right? And then what truths do they hold self-evident? Because that, so now your mind is the standard of all reality and truth, right? A person's mind, their personal mind, is their subjective mind now, is the standard of truth and figuring out reality. So you get the we hold these truths self-evident. Who's the we? The founding fathers. What's the truth? Back then, what was the self-evident truth? Freedom from England or whatever. Okay, now that's over. Now what's the self-evident truth? You see how that keeps changing? The self-evident truth in the 50s was families and getting a good job at the factory. The self-evident truth of now is radical individualism. You can't tell me nothing. Freedom over everything. There is no uh, objective reality, no objective morality. I can do what I want. That's what happens. The we changes. It's subjective. The founding fathers, they're gone, long time ago gone. And the we keeps changing, and the self-evident truth keeps changing. Do you see how the I am that I am doesn't change? He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. But when you start with the axiom is I think, therefore I am, the logic runs through perfectly to we hold these truths to be self-evident. And these self-evident truths are now, the truth is now in our minds because we think, and we can make truth whatever we want. And that's what the logic is working out here. That's why the United States or the West in general is falling apart. We have the founding fathers, right? I can get why they did it, kind of. They had 13 colonies that hated each other, fighting each other. Different Protestant sects couldn't stand each other, right? They're Freemasons and deists, right? They don't even care. They just know that Christianity works because up to then, the civilization was built off of Christianity, off the I am that I am. So they knew that they needed God, but say, they couldn't name him because they're going to be like, okay, is it the Quaker God? Is it the Anabaptist God? Is it the Catholic God? Is it like, which one is it? So they, uh, I'm going to give them a little grace here. I'm not sure if they wanted to put their Freemasonic God in the placeholder spot, or if they kind of did it out of necessity because Protestants were at each other's throats in the colonies. I don't know. Maybe it was a little bit of both. There's probably a little bit of both, right? But this is probably like a noble lie they did. They put their Freemasonic God, and or you could call it a generic God, the God of nature, as the God of the United States. That is not Jesus Christ. That is not the God, the I am that I am. Because the I am that I am has a name. He has a name. He's been named. He's revealed his name. He's the I am that I am. He is Jesus Christ, right? If they would have put Jesus Christ's name as the God of the United States, whoa, that logic runs a lot differently. We would be in a whole different country because we have an objective standard. We have an objective standard. But no, they couldn't do that because of the colonies the Protestants were fighting, and they needed to unite quickly. So it was it's hard to say, it's kind of a genius move at the time, right? To get everybody to get along, right? They knew that, oh yeah, if we put God, the God of nature, they're all like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That it'll fit all those slots for the Protestants that were here. But now looking back 250 years, you could run the formal logic math backwards, and you can see, yeah, this is a problem. This is a huge problem. The I think, therefore I am is a problem. All you gotta do is run some presuppositional logic on it, and you can see you don't get the I. You just grant yourself the I. You don't get thinking. You just grant yourself thinking. You gotta ground these things. You have to ground these things first. As we see, there's holes in this. David Hume brought it up. Some other philosophers brought it up too. Uh, Nietzsche picked it apart too. But they have a generic God over the United States because they wanted the order that God provides. They knew that was key, even though they were Freemasons and deists, right? They thought that human reasoning would solve everything, right? But reasoning is a tool. It's not a ground for morality. It's not a ground for ought. It's just a tool, a thing we do, but it's not objective. It's ever changing with technology, with time, with growth of the country, etc., on and on and on. So the people, keeps changing. It's subjective. The self-evident truth keep changing. It's subjective, and it's now we're here. We're here where anti-natalism is running wild, right? There's like two. I don't know if I should call it shadows, right? The shadow male, the shadow female, or the toxic male side, the toxic feminine side. The toxic male side would be like overly violent, aggressive, criminal type behavior. And the toxic female or the shadow female would be the promiscuous, OF, anti-natalist, hypergamy, you know, all that stuff that we're seeing come like rise up like big time now, right? If both, if one goes unchecked, it can destroy the civilization, right? If male toxicity, male shadow, whatever you want to call it, I don't even know a good word for it. If that goes unchecked and criminals and warlords run everything, it's total chaos, right? On the flip side, if female promiscuity and female shadow, right, female toxicity isn't checked, you get anti-natalism and you get the death of the family. And what grounds this stuff? The I am that I am grounds it better than anything, right? We can look back and look at the Byzantium Empire, the 1100-year Christian empire, right? That for some reason the West ignores completely, right? That worked a lot better than this experiment. Um, but you can't check female promiscuity or the female shadow, or we can check the male uh, shadow, the male toxicity side, because it's crime. We have police. We already put in measures to check that. That was like a given from the jump, right? Well, it wasn't a given, but that became the norm to check male aggression and crime and violence. Everybody agrees that should be checked. But now the self-evident truth is radical individualism. My truth, my truth, my truth. Everybody has their own truth because everybody is, I think, therefore I am. And everybody has their own, everybody's reasoning is the ground of reality now because of the Enlightenment philosophy. That's the ethos of the West. Now you can't check the female shadow. You can't do it because it's a part of radical individualism, is a part of their self-evident truth. It's a part of their I think, therefore I am. And they're not committing crimes, they're not ultra violent, but in the same respect, it will destroy the civilization or society because there won't be any families, there won't be any babies. So it can do the same amount of damage as the male shadow, darkness, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. There's a word for it. I can't think of it right now. Worked all night, 12-hour shift. So that is my point, is that logic appears to be like a force that will work out the contradictions of the foundational axiom of a worldview. We're in a philosophy right now. We're in the founding fathers' philosophy. We're living in it, right? Philosophies have major power from Occam and his philosophy on uh, nominalism. That changed everything. That changed. It took hundreds of years, but the math, the axiom, once the axiom is set, the logic will run itself through people, through reality, through life, through the years. If you have a terrible worldview, you will live contradictions, and they will jump out and bite you. They will check the contradictions. Contradictions are like, they're like anti-reality. They're like, they can't they have to be worked out. They have to come to the surface and like neutralize themselves or stop themselves. If you I'm just trying to give it words because it's hard to explain what I'm talking about. Contradictions always No matter if if the worldview, if the ethos, if the foundational axiom is built on a terrible axiom like I think therefore I am, the contradictions will rise up. The self-evident truth will be subjective, and it will get to the absurd like we are now. As in, genders can be whatever you want, anti-natalism is good, promiscuity is good, all these. The system will come up with absurdities and bury it and lie as long as they can to keep the system going, but it will reach its logical conclusion. The society will collapse. It's inevitable unless a massive change is made. Usually, that is a war, famine, uh, uh, a sickness, a flu, uh, barbarians at the gate, vandals, Visigoths, right? Usually it's in the form of that. World wars, right? We don't, that's usually how in history these things have been reset. These civilizations have been reset, right? There's always a uh, people left over. It's never like a complete wipeout, usually not ever a complete wipeout of people. There's people that survive, right? The meek shall inherit the earth. And then the cycle starts all over again with terrible axioms, terrible philosophy, terrible believing that empiricism is actually like a worldview and it's not. It's a tool, it's science for natural science to figure out the world. It was never meant to be a foundational axiom for a worldview and a system for governance and a country, society. It can't be because you can't get an ought from an is. You can't get an ought from is. So the logic is running itself through right now through the West, and it is not looking good. Right? Never before have we seen single women now, or what's the statistic? There's gonna be more single childless women than ever in history of the world. That's like literally the beginning of the end. Like it's like too late now, really. Right? South Korea is gonna disappear, or gonna be there's no one's gonna be there. Japan's facing that. The United States is facing that. The birth rates are low. That's anti-natalism, right? Everybody's selfish. They don't want to have kids. They just want to have fun. They're busy working. They want their careers. That's the self-evident truth of the modern we the people, right? And when a system is built on self-evident truth, then why not ransack the government? Why not take over the government like these lawyers did, right? And join the Senate, the Congress, and then just rob the country blind. Why? Because that's my self-evident truth, right? Why not these corporations just flood it with lobbyists, right? To make whatever they want happen. That's their self-evident truth. That's their reasoning, right? That's since reasoning is the top dog in the Enlightenment philosophy of the West. How can you tell them no, right? And then we have the Constitution, right? So what's the Constitution? The guys that wrote it, well, they're long gone. So they never they couldn't fathom the world today, right? So then you have the Supreme Court, 9 people that either have to somehow pretend to think like them, invoke them, summons their spirit. Like what? Like they're supposed to interpret today's problems with their mindset? That's impossible. It's completely impossible. They built the axiom on a religious people, a Christian people. That's gone. That's over with, right? So, or you have like your that you could do it that way, or you could do it the living Constitution and interpret it as you go. Both cancel each other out. You can't say which one's right and which one's wrong. You can't, right? Because you could there's cases for both of them. So now you're stuck with these two avenues, to interpret the Constitution that's built on a bad axiom, that's built on a generic God, the Freemasonic God, the Freemason God, which that God doesn't tell you to do anything. That God doesn't say anything. He doesn't talk. He doesn't tell you. He doesn't do anything. He's not. He didn't come. He didn't come and tell us about himself on earth. He didn't do nothing. He's just the architect and the God of nature, whatever that means. Nature is pretty freaking violent. What do you mean the God of nature? What do you mean rights? Rights don't even exist. It's a social contract. So you see how the axioms are built on a bunch of nonsense? They can be picked apart easily, and the logic is running itself through. Yes, we had a big boom and a big rise, and it could only, these lies and these contradictions can only sustain for so long, and it's over. It's over. Like, it's done. There's no going back anymore, because the people are not the same people. Their self-evident truths are not the same self-evident truths. The we the people ain't the same we the people. It's over. It was built on a subjective reasoning. Human reasoning is the arbiter of all truth system that is bound to fail. I mean, I'm not the only one that figured this out. Like, C.S. Lewis figured this out. Hegel figured this out. There's a bunch of philosophers that figured this out. Once even freaking Nietzsche, we killed God. Yeah, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It just takes enough time. It's a wrap. It's over. People don't even know their own foundational axioms at all. They don't even know what an axiom is, let alone that they should have one. They have one. They usually just absorb it from wherever they're born, right? And then to think that, the founding fathers want to get rid of dogma so bad. But guess what? You're still in dogma. They believe that reasoning was the best we have. That's a dogma. That's a literal dogma. Oh, reasoning is the only thing we have. Dogma. That's what it is. You have a They replace priests with judges and governors and senates and congressmen. It's the same thing. You can't escape religion. Theology comes first, then philosophy, then science. That you can't escape this system. Theology always comes first. And then from theology comes philosophy. And then from philosophy comes science. That's the way it goes. There's no getting around it. There's no subverting it. There's no reasoning beats this. There's no neutral human mental state where you can look at the evidence and say, yep, this is what this means. No, because all data must be interpreted by a mind, and a mind from a human has presuppositions built into it and a worldview and axiom. You can't escape it. There's no escaping theology, philosophy, at all. These come first. And we're living in the early Enlightenment philosophy of I think, therefore I am, and self evident truth with a generic, do nothing, say nothing God that they made up, or is a Freemason God that doesn't do anything. So we're stuck. We're stuck to let this algorithm play out. It's like logic is like the software of a computer. It runs the computer. It will work itself out. It will work. It's like an algorithm. It will find the contradictions. It will bring them to the surface. It will show you the absurdities, and people just ignore it because they think this is the greatest country on earth, and they've been indoctrinated. That's going away. That's going away big time. When I was a kid, man, we used to say the Pledge of Allegiance. We used to believe in the country and think that we're the best. That's way gone now. Like, I don't know anybody that really kind of believes that anymore. Before, even not even that long ago, what, 10, 15 years ago, everybody I worked with was a Christian. Most of them will go to church, not like every single Sunday, but at least some Sundays. Everybody would go to church on Easter, or like at least 90% now. And now my job, no, how do you, me and another person are the only churchgoers. Me and another person are the only ones that, well, let's say three of us out of 20, right? Now we're the majority. Like, it's a wrap. Of course, that's going to happen when you have a fake freaking God at the top of our system that doesn't do anything. He doesn't even have a name, right? There's your axiom, the Freemason God. Yay. What a freaking joke. What a joke that was. It's wild, man. It's wild. And you know what? I'm still torn on, did they do it on purpose or was it a necessity move? Probably a little both. They're like, hey, we have a necessity. Here's our chance to put our terrible, do nothing, crappy ass God, the DS God, the Freemason God, the do nothing, no name God, in charge of our experiment. Hey, it worked. It worked for a little bit. It worked for a little bit. Boy, was that. It's crashing and burning now. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. The country's probably done, unless, I don't know. I don't want to give predictions. There's too many variables, but there's no way this version of this system can last, you know, much longer, because the logic of it, the axiom, is self-refuting, self-defeating. At the end of the algorithm, at the end of the equation, at the end of its running through time in real life, mixed with advances in technology, population growth, etc., 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 the logic concludes.